Hi YouTube, it's Tia, and guess where I am? Can you guess? Sweden! I'm in Sweden!
And I'm back from Sweden. No, I'm just playing. I'm gonna show you guys the vlog, but I thought that in this vlog, about this country specifically, I just really needed to show you guys what Sweden is like, but I also wanted to just sit down and talk to you guys about some of the major differences I found between Sweden and everywhere else I've ever been before. Like, wow. The weather. You guys, I knew that Sweden was going to be colder than Milan, but I wasn't prepared for what I actually got. I looked up the weather in Stockholm, Sweden, and I saw that it was going to be like 10 degrees, 11 degrees, which is still cold, but you know, it's bearable, and you can still get away with just wearing a coat. Living in Milan, and being that there's really no wind in Milan, I didn't scroll down to where it says feels like, because yes, in Stockholm the weather was 11 degrees, 12 degrees, 10 degrees, whatever, but it felt like 0 degrees. The day that I left Sweden, it was -2 degrees. The cold is harsh. I made the mistake of going to Sweden in the springtime. So if you want to go to Sweden to visit, I would definitely say to go in the summertime when there's a lot more green on the trees, the weather is warmer. The weather in Sweden is a bit harsh, and so you'd have to prepare yourself for that, because I didn't. Luckily for me though, there were some days that were absolutely beautiful. All you really needed was the sun to come out. And don't get me wrong, the weather didn't ruin my trip to Sweden. It was just something to look out for. Swedes are so efficient. I feel like they just thought of everything. Did you know that in Sweden they don't use cents? Everything they pay for is in a whole Swedish krone. And if you're gonna buy something, it's either gonna be 1 krone, or 2 krones, or 3 krones. There's no 350, there's no 360. These people don't have time for pennies. And it was actually kind of cool because it makes you walk around with less sense. Oh, speaking of walking around with less sense, you don't walk around with less sense, because in Sweden, you can pay for everything and anything with your card. It was like, I just went from one extreme to the next, because that week, I had like 2 run-ins in Italy with people putting the little bancomat sign outside of their window in the shop, and then me going inside and them telling me that I still couldn't use my debit card. Then I get to Sweden, and you know, knowing Italians, knowing Europe, I was like, let me just get some cash just in case, right? I go to the airport and I take out 300 krones, which is like 30 euros. And I go to get on the bus to go to the center of the city. And let me tell you guys, the bus driver was like, you can only pay with credit card or debit card on this bus. I prefer that. I don't like walking around with huge amounts of cash. It's so much more convenient, and I can't wait for it to be like that in Italy as well. Oh yeah, another piece of just efficiency. Did you know that in Sweden, everybody walks to the left? See, I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew we did that too. I mean, there's not a sign that says walk to the left, but it's just ingrained in you to walk the right way. In America, in Connecticut, in the Northeast, we walk to the right. And so if you walk to the right and the person coming towards you walks to the right, you don't bump into each other. That is a concept that does not exist in Italy, and everybody is everywhere. In Sweden, it's the opposite. They walk to the left and the other person walks to the left. And yeah, it was so weird and interesting because it's like I spent a whole week in Sweden and with everything, I didn't get bumped into once in Sweden. Like the traffic of people just moved so smoothly. And then I came back to Italy and within 3 hours I was bumped like 3 times. Probably because I was walking to the left. I don't know. To eat some Swedish food. I didn't have Swedish meatballs, like the real traditional Swedish plate, but I did get to try some pastries. They have some awesome pastries. I didn't know it, but apparently the Swedish like invented the cinnamon twist and the cinnamon roll. They are famous for their cinnamon rolls, which are actually called boulet. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but they have awesome baked goods and pastries that are just, you know. Fun fact, in Sweden, it's also like for every American company that they have in Sweden, they also have a Swedish one to match it. You got McDonald's and Burger King. Sweden has McDonald's and Burger King in the country, in the city, but they also have this thing called Max, and it's this Swedish version of basically Burger King or McDonald's, but it's so much better because all the food is so fresh and all the sandwiches are ready to order. You order a sandwich and they make it and then they give it to you. Where you know that in Burger King and McDonald's, the sandwiches are usually there, sitting there for like 4 minutes waiting for somebody to take them. Like, it's so good, and they sell it, and it's so cheap. Like, I got a whole meal for €3 or something, a sandwich, fries, and a drink for €3, and it was amazing. You got Starbucks. Well, Sweden has Espresso House, which isn't too Swedish, but it is Swedish because they invented it, and it has like all the Swedish pastries that I told you about, along with like different Italian coffees. And for any like clothing store, you have H&M in Sweden. On every street there's like 5 H&Ms. We went on this street in the center and there was literally an H&M there, an H&M there, an H&M there, and an H&M there. I didn't really get the sense of it, but that works. Sweden is so international. I'm gonna say international and not Americanized. Why? Because although that I saw a million Starbuckses, all these American influences in Sweden, I also have to say that Swedish people kind of kept their own singular Swedish identity at the same time. Like, you could still see culturally that while Americans or Anglo-Saxons, whatever, are close to the Nordic peoples, there are still some key differences that they have maintained. And it was really cool to see a country, you know, integrate so well with foreign people and with foreign influences, yet maintain their own individuality. For example, I saw that in Sweden it's not as mixed as Milan. In Stockholm, the capital city where I stayed, it's not as multicultural as Milan in the sense that you can see all of these different people. But when you do, I noticed that immigrants in Sweden work normal jobs. What do I mean by that? It's not uncommon to go into a store or see an immigrant driving a bus or being a cashier or doing something that is a non-menial type of work that you will always basically see them doing in Italy. For example, Salim's parents are from Eritrea. There was a war in Eritrea, but I don't know if they went to Sweden via asylum or if they just went, I don't know, but they ended up in Sweden. And both of her Eritrean parents just stayed in Sweden, learned Swedish. Her mom was able to get a job at an elementary school, and her dad is a mechanic on the Swedish like public transportation. He works on the subways, and like it's very rare to see a fresh off the boat immigrant doing the same thing in Italy, unfortunately. So I thought that it was really great that Sweden, they just do so much for the people that live there. They don't care if you are actually Swedish or if what amount of time you've been there. If you're gonna live in Sweden, know that the Swedish state is going to work to let you have a good life and let you have a certain type of equality. In Sweden, the economy is doing really good from what I can see. Like, there's barely any unemployment. Everybody has a job. You don't see like African immigrants selling the little bracelets on the side of the street, at least not as much as you see in Italy. I didn't see them. They are instead working inside of stores and whatever. It was really cool to see, and I can only hope that Italy can move into that direction, because obviously when the immigrants have more opportunity, it gives them more of a chance to integrate well into society. And I feel like the Swedish immigrants are doing very well at integrating into Swedish society. Speaking of culture, one day me and Salam were just walking around and suddenly I found myself in Westeros. I was no longer in Stockholm, Sweden. I was in Westeros in the Game of Thrones.
Det var en stjärnklar sommarnatt. Vi seglar våra dragskepp kapp. Fram franker slåss och erövra. Kung ryggradslöse skatt. Och mur av sköldar drack blått blod. Då framåt oss vi slog. Hörjallar, hår, sillar, bud. Framåt ner stod. För evigat mitt namn kom blev när så.
It was cool though.
Så Torun byttes i motoren. Då skrok i vilka kvalar bor. Att dra omkring på gård var dag. Det passar ej mitt sinnelag. Det är ute i världen för att dra.
Häll åt sådant tal. Vi kämpar spår i jordens sal. Vi höjer vägarna till svar. Vi oss väntar.
Also on the international topic, Swedish people speak English insanely well, scary well. The best English I've ever heard in Europe so far has come from Sweden, because the Swedish people, when they speak English, they don't even have an accent. I just have to look at them like, where are you from? I remember one of the first times I met Salem, I was like, where did you learn English though? Because it was just so perfect. And she was telling me that, well, they start learning it really early in school. But I'm like, I don't think that's why, because they start learning it really early in Italy too. And Italian English is not like that. And so I think what it is though is on their televisions, half of the channels are English and they have Swedish subtitles, there's no dubs. It's obvious that in Europe everybody watches American TV shows and movies. I've already told you that. So if you're going to do that, they might as well be in the original language. No, because what happens is the little Swedish children start learning English in school, they study the grammar and blah blah blah, and then they go home and they watch their favorite TV shows, Gossip Girl or whatever it might be, in English, and they see the Swedish. So you're simultaneously learning English in a more passive way, a more natural way, and in the end what you have is that I don't feel like Swedish people feel a huge distinction between English and Swedish. I feel like English is more of an extension to their Swedish. They can just turn like that. They are completely bilingual. It didn't matter, and it also wasn't a class thing, because that's another thing that exists in Italy. If you're in the upper echelons of society, yeah, you'll see a lot of people that speak English, but the common people in Italy, the regular everyday people, don't speak English. Usually. And so in Sweden, I went to Burger King and I started talking to the person in English, making my order in English, and they were able to make my order in English. The people begging on the streets for money were begging in English. I was like, what? And it was really interesting and really cool, because at the end of the day, English is becoming the international language. I mean, everybody says it is the easier language to learn, and in my opinion, the people in the north do have a bit of an easier pass, because Swedish is much closer to English than Italian is. Swedish is just like a variation of German from the way I see it outside looking in. But anyways, it's cool that they speak English. As a tourist, I'm not gonna lie, that was amazing that they spoke English. Nah man, but everybody should really get out there and visit Sweden, especially Stockholm, just to see the way that people live. It's so cool to see such a different culture and to see that they're really it is possible for the government to help the people and have a well-functioning country with a good economy. Like this, the government helps the Swedish people so much, you guys. It's amazing. For the young people have so much opportunity. The university is free. I'm not talking about like Italy and other European countries where university is much cheaper compared to American university. I mean straight up gratis. Free. And as a matter of fact, Swedish students get money to go to school. If you go to university in Sweden and you're Swedish, you'll get 200 euros a month or something to go to school. Someone was telling me that if you don't have a job, they have these things where you can do like a course at an unemployment office where they give you the skills to find a job, but they also pay you for doing the course. Like, of course, it's not a lot. Maybe it'll be like 100 or 200 euros a month, but it's still the principle. And afterwards, the course helps you find a job. They help you to find a job. Young people have a lot of opportunities because there's a lot of openings in all these new emerging companies. There's so many startups in Sweden. You should see the blogging and YouTube world in Sweden. That has just taken off. Things were not much more expensive than in Milan. Like everything was the same or less than it costs in Milan. Aside from the public transportation in Stockholm is a bit insane, the cost, but I guess that's because you get brand new metros, like all of their metros were brand new, and they operate 24 hours on weekdays, and until like 1 on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, I'm not complaining because the Milan public transport is amazing as well, but Sweden has some more perks. But yeah, that's all of my social commentary. I'm just gonna leave you guys to see some more of the beautiful parts of Sweden that I saw and just let this vlog roll out. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Next week I'm gonna try to have my workout routine up and my what I eat in a day video, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I've got a lot of fun videos coming. I'm sorry that I was kind of slow this week because I had exams and then I had a little bit of vacation, but don't worry, I'm here. Enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time. Mwah.